If you've started investigating the whole removing toxins and chemicals from your foods, you might actually have come across my guest today on the show. Her name is Tracey Fry, and together with her sister, they run a business called Additive Free Lifestyle. But Tracey is on the show today to share her personal thyroid story, which obviously interacts with the Additive Free Lifestyle aspect as well. Now, given that if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know I'm all about a thyroid lifestyle. Tracey and I have a fair bit in common, actually, really, in terms of the lifestyle approach to managing health. That probably won't come as any great surprise. But I love talking with Tracey. I think it's always brave for people to come and share their personal health journeys with all of us who are listening. And in my conversation with Tracey today, we talk about things like being additive free, toxic load, detoxing our bodies, the impact that chemicals have on our thyroid health, fragrances, simple switches, DIY, essential oils, all of those types of things. But we also really cover her thyroid journey, which began at 16, and she's had some overactive and some underactive periods in her life. So we chat about that. We talk about things like finding the right doctor, how to manage anxiety that feeling anxious in our current world life circumstance. So many of us are feeling much more anxious than we've ever felt before. So we talk about that and some sleep routines. And of course, like with all my guests, I ask them what advice they would have for the younger self. And Tracey has some great advice for a younger Tracey. So sit back, relax, enjoy, or drive your car or walk your dog or whatever you're doing while you listen. I hope you really enjoy the conversation today. Welcome to Let's Talk Thyroid, where we explore different aspects of living a healthy thyroid lifestyle, positively and practically, to help you thrive and not just survive. Join me, Annabel Bateman, your host, and let's talk thyroid. Before we dive in to my chat with Tracey, if you enjoy the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast, which I hope you do, it would be really helpful both to me and to help other people who don't yet know about the podcast, if you could head to Apple Podcasts, find Let's Talk Thyroid, the show, not the individual episode, and scroll down to the reviews, leave me a 5-star review and a comment as to what you get out of the podcast. That helps the algorithms know that it's a podcast with valuable information. It will help people who don't yet know about the podcast or are needing some help with their thyroid diet and lifestyle approach to come across the show and really get some benefit out of it. So that would be super helpful if you would do that. You can always share the episodes and show with your friends, which I know many of you do, and for which I'm super, super grateful. Okay. Hi, Tracey, and welcome to the Let's Talk Thyroid podcast.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, that's my pleasure. I know, talking about our own health journey can be hard, actually. It can be hard to unravel it all in our own mind and let alone talk about it with other people. So I appreciate that it takes a bit of courage and vulnerability to share your own personal story. So
that's easy, not a problem.
Maybe we'll just start off by you just introducing yourself to who you are, what do you do, a little bit of background, and then we'll dive right into your thyroid story.
Sure, no worries. So a little bit about me. I'm a mum, I'm married, I'm recently, 46, so not a spring chicken anymore. But I started my thyroid journey when I was about 16, and I started learning, that's when I first diagnosed with what they said was an underactive thyroid. Mm-hmm. And from there I went on to some medications, and for the life of me, I'm assuming it was thyroxine, but I actually have zero recollection of what it was at the time.
Yeah.
At 16, I just took whatever they, told me to do.
Yeah.
And it was not until I wanted to join the military, I wanted to join the Navy, and they said, actually, you can't join with a thyroid problem.
Oh.
I was like, oh, okay. So they sent me off for some blood tests and some different works, and they said, oh, everything's normal. I'm like, okay. And I just went along with it. I didn't know anything better. And ended up in the military, spent quite a few years working on the mainland. I'm in Hobart, so I was in New South Wales at the time. And I thought I was fine. I probably wasn't, but I just went along with life. And it wasn't until after I had my children that I realised something was dramatically wrong with my health. And what had happened was I had actually lost a lot of weight really quickly. And I thought, oh, my God, I've got cancer or something. This is not normal. On the flip side of that, I was eating the most ridiculous food, Mars bars, Kit Kats. I couldn't get enough sugar into my body. And I went to the doctor, and I remember saying to him, you probably don't hear this often, but I've lost a lot of weight and I'm not something's wrong. Like, I need you to figure out what's wrong with me. And he said, because he could see the goiter, which I couldn't see because you don't see your own sort of thing. And he actually said to me, you've got a thyroid problem. Let's get some blood tests, but I'm going to tell you that's what it is. He sent me off for some blood tests. Of course, everything was completely out of control.
Haywire. Yeah. Yeah.
And I ended up with Graves' disease and was seeing a specialist. Now, again, I can't actually remember any medications that I was on back then.
Yeah, the brain fog kind of kicks in, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, I had no idea. Big part, I don't know if you know anyone with Graves' disease, but your eyes sort of puff right out. You do have a goiter. Like I said, I'd lost a lot of weight. I looked grey almost. Like, I look back at photos and I was really unhealthy. And it wasn't. And I remember the doctor saying to me at that appointment, do you crave sugar? And I'm like, well, I've already had a Mars bar and a Kit Kat and it's only 10 o'clock. So, yep, I'm going to say yes.
Yeah.
So crazy diet, which was obviously not doing me any good either. And, put me on medication, sent me to a specialist. I worked with the specialist for around 18 months who basically just modified medications. That was all he did. And ended up having radioiodine treatment, which, again, looking back, I think, oh, my God, what was I doing or thinking? They literally got it out of a metal box like it was kryptonite and handed it to me with big metal tongs that the nurse wouldn't touch it, like these big metal tongs, handed me this capsule like a Panadol. It was about
wow.
And told me to swallow it.
And then they ran out of the room or...
Yeah, crazy. And then, what actually had to happen was I wasn't allowed to be around my children for 5 days because literally I was radioactive.
Yeah.
So anyway, I did that. Well, I was told that would kill my thyroid. Thankfully, it actually hasn't, and I do have a very small working thyroid at the moment. But anyway, went on that journey, felt really great for a few years. And I just sort of thought, I don't know, I've got really in tune with my body over the last 6-7 years. And I've started living a completely additive-free, toxic-free lifestyle, so which has got me really in tune with everything. And from there, realised something just doesn't seem right. I could sense it. And I went along and had some more blood tests, and sure enough, my levels were tiny little bit not so great, but nothing like they ever used to be. And this was just with a regular general practitioner. She said, you're going to need some thyroxine. So I was, all right, not really sure I want to do this, but sure. Didn't offer me any other solutions at all. And it was only in the last 2.5 months of recording this that I've started seeing an integrative GP who has put me on like herbal supplements and different things. I'm not on any prescription medications at all. So that's where I am.
Yeah, wow. That's it's not an uncommon thyroid story, is it? That up and down, and you don't know what you don't know, and you just do what you're told, and gradually we become more in tune with our body. And I could be wrong on this, but I was told at one stage it's ready to go from underactive to overactive to underactive. I don't know if that's totally true, really, because who knows? Everyone's different. But from people I talk to, I haven't fluctuated like that. I've got Hashimoto's, but there are people that seem to fluctuate a bit between the Graves and Hashimoto's, and certainly my understanding is once you've had your thyroid removed or obliterated, then
Yeah. So when this latest doctor did my latest testings, he was, well, there has to be some thyroid there. Like it hasn't been obliterated like it should have been. So we're going to try and get that back to as best as possible, working with herbal supplements. And if they don't work, I'm not against prescription medications. But I'm going to try all these other things. The other thing in my story is not once in that from the age of 16 to the age of now, 46, has any other doctor spoken to me about lifestyle. The food choices that I eat. The only thing, in standard, do you smoke, do you drink kind of questions. Nothing have I been spoken to about stress, adrenal fatigue, any other thing that can be affecting my thyroid ever. Like I've never, iodine, that's normal, but that was a deficiency from childhood, not from, something I can sort of fix now, I guess. But yeah, it's crazy when I look back.
It is crazy. It is crazy. Yeah.
Now from the age, for the last 30 years, has no one ever mentioned anything else to do with lifestyle choices?
Yeah. It's so frustrating when there's so many things that we can do.
So many things. And so many things now that I've learned from teaching people. So I have a blog called Additive Free Lifestyle that I run with my sister, and we teach people to lower their toxic load through food and lifestyle. And throughout the last 6-7 years of teaching people, that is where I've discovered all these links to thyroid problems.
Yeah, right.
Through fragrances and through additives affecting the toxic load of our body and the build-up and the accumulation of all the ingredients, and how it just puts so much pressure on our body to function that those little glands that sit inside our bodies just can't function properly, and therefore they go a bit haywire. That's not the only reason, but it's certainly a factor.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it can trigger thyroid problems in the first place, those chemicals.
Yeah. And who knows how much impulse I sprayed at 16 there.
I know, we all did that, didn't we?
Going around. You can imagine, right?
Exactly. So talking about 16, so 16-year-old Tracey, how did you what were you noticing? Do you remember what you were noticing at the time that you were first diagnosed then with an underactive thyroid? Like that's fairly young, especially 30 years ago.
Yeah, I think I had glandular fever. And from there, a doctor must have tested me for something to do with thyroid. Yeah. And it's in my family. It's hereditary, like what it is hereditary to So it is in the family. I've got some aunts with thyroid issues, so that's probably come up in a conversation. Yeah. Luckily, the doctor thought to test it maybe back then. So I was probably lucky in a way that it was tested back then. But, I don't think I had – I can't remember. Yeah. Other than I know I had glandular fever somewhere in that time zone. Yep. And I reckon it's somewhere around there that something's happened and someone's tested for thyroid.
Yeah, yeah. And that's another one of the common triggers is that viral infection and hormones. Yeah, like I think for me it was part of the trigger was puberty. Like I look back, I was diagnosed at 23, but it was definitely there from about 12 or 13 when I look back and think about it. So, and I'm similar age. I'm just turned 47. So I think, well, back then, that's sort of 30 years ago, all right, okay, they didn't know so much. Well, I mean, they did, but, I think there's so much more that is known now about diet, lifestyle, autoimmune thyroid conditions, autoimmunity, all those connections we were just talking about, that it just makes me really cross when I hear stories of, doctors that still don't talk about those things or believe in those things or say they don't matter or just take a pill and you'll be fine or,
Well, it was one of the main reasons for me going to a brand new doctor after a lot of it was basically just I felt like I was judged by walking in and saying, look, is there anything else we can do? Are there any natural treatments or natural therapies? One doctor I saw who I've been seeing for a long time, she did say to eat some Brazil nuts.
Okay, so she had the selenium thing going, yep.
Yeah, right, so for selenium and I'm like, okay. So I did start doing that, but it had nothing to do with lifestyle. That's not going to fix anything. A couple of Brazil nuts.
No, it's part of it, but it's certainly not. Yeah, that's right.
If you're still spraying toxic ingredients all over your body and eating, it's not going to fix anything.
So the whole, additive-free, chemical-free lifestyle you said has been, well, it's your business, and it's been key for you for the last 6 or 7 years, but it sounds like it wasn't thyroid health that took you down that path. Was there something else that made you go down that path? And so the thyroid's just been that sounds like you've been able to connect all the dots later rather than that was the reason.
Yeah, absolutely. The additive free journey started with my sister, to be honest. She started looking into additives because of her daughter. So her daughter Eva, my niece, had a lot of behavioural issues, quite a lot, but was also very, very sick. She had her tonsils out before she was even 2 years old. She'd had pneumonia a few times, bronchitis a few times, chronic ear infections. She was in and out of hospital, unable to breathe through respiratory issues.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
They don't call it asthma, but it is.
Yeah.
And if you can't, it's a horrible feeling having to rush your child to the doctor because they can't breathe, hospital to ER. So she had a lot of issues with her daughter, and she happened to just stumble across at a cooking demonstration. A lady casually mentioned this additive 102 being linked to behavioural issues. And Jo from there went, okay, this is something that maybe, that's strange. Like I've never heard of anyone talking about this before. And she went home and started researching things, and it was like tick, 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 tick. This additive 102, it's actually the colour yellow.
Okay.
And it's found in a lot of baby food and toddler-related food. So it's not just cheeses. The colour yellow, I immediately think twisties or cheeses or something. But custard and even like the Woolworths sponge cake, anything that might have an egg in it, but they need to make it look more yellow.
Okay, more eggy, yep.
Anything that is even sometimes green, because blue and yellow make green. So spinach wraps don't actually have any spinach in them. They're green because they're coloured with food colouring. So anyway, a lot of things. So she started looking into that, and she went down that path, and she wasn't living a crazy diet lifestyle either. She was eating meat and vegetables and all the things. So anyway, she went down that path and started looking into additives, and their life flipped 180, changed completely. Not just did the sicknesses go away, the illnesses went away, but the behavioural changes completely pretty much disappeared.
Yeah.
3-year-old kids have tantrums, right?
Yeah.
Not like this, So anyway, she had her tested. She had her booked in to be tested for ADHD, but there was a 5-month wait period, and she was able to cancel that appointment. They didn't actually need to go after they'd gone additive free. So from there, I'm her big sister. I started I was intrigued by what she was sharing, what she was saying, and it intrigued me. So she'd started a little Facebook page, and I was following along on that and reading little things, and little snippets were kind of standing out to me. I've got teenage children, and at the time they were teenagers, and they're now young adults, but little snippets were starting to stand out to me as well of like, oh, yeah, that seems strange. Like, yeah, I've had headaches, or they're complaining of this after eating XYZ, or, little things were starting to make a bit of sense, and nothing dramatic, but it kind of, piece a few things together. So I started to live more and more and more additive free. And then we discovered essential oils along that journey and completely fell in love with those. And they just lowered our toxic load like there was no tomorrow.
Just makes it so much easier, doesn't it?
Oh,
yeah.
So easy to switch out anything fragranced whatsoever.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
It's disappeared out of my home.
You can actually have things that smell nice and don't make you sick. It's sort of, who knew?
I used to have candles and heavily fragranced candles all throughout the home, fragrance things in the bathrooms and reed diffusers and all these things that I now know impact my thyroid, because fragrances are one of the worst things for our endocrine system. And also our adrenal glands, it just puts extra stress on those. Anyway, so I was able to remove pretty much, my house is very toxic free from food and lifestyle, like everything in it. So that's, I think hands down has made the biggest difference to my thyroid health.
Yeah. Well, that's massive, especially when you didn't initially know, so that's probably helped along the way too, it not become as bad as it could have come.
I remember seeing a holistic nutritionist about 3 years ago to look at gut health and things, and 'cause as you learn more, you become interested in all these other different things. So I was looking into gut health and making sure that was all, going okay. And I remember her saying to me, if you didn't live the lifestyle you lived, you would be actually incredibly sick.
Because of your thyroid?
Because of my thyroid issues, yeah.
It's amazing. That is. And I think sometimes, having sort of been immersed in the diet lifestyle approach to thyroid health, probably for coming up to about 10 years for me now, I think a lot of, certainly probably where I started was with making dietary changes and that anti-inflammatory approach to diet. But it's sort of only been really, probably since I discovered essential oils too, about 5 years ago, to that the impact of chemicals. I didn't realise that impact, and that's sort of become more and more apparent to me. And one of the people that I love to follow on thyroid health is Dr. Dardis Karatsian, and he is all over all of the research into thyroid health, and he talks a lot about chemicals, and he says you need to be as concerned about drinking out of plastic as you are by avoiding gluten. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm so like gluten, 100% no gluten. And for him to put that on that par, like I was like, oh, right, okay, all right, like, okay. It's a constant learning, but to realise the importance of that chemical-free life is, I think something that I'm still learning and realising the depth of what an impact they can have.
And it can be really overwhelming, right? So when we start, in some way, if someone walked into my house and went, right, you need to remove all of this.
Oh, yeah, it's like, too much, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
But it was just a heap of simple swaps. And
so where did you start with that then, Tracey?
Oh, gosh, that's probably, I started with food, which was probably the hardest.
Yeah, so getting rid of the chemicals and the additives out of your food. So
removing anything artificially, food coloured, preservatives. I would have started with the MSG. It definitely wasn't gluten at that stage. I definitely wasn't. I was only started going gluten-free in the last 2 or 3 months. So I did, because again, didn't really associate with it. So for me, it was definitely those additives and preservatives within the food, the colours, all of those things. And then it was, like I said, when I found oils, I was like, oh, I can make body scrubs. Oh, I can make all this fun stuff. And I was a beauty therapist back in years ago.
Okay. Oh, well, I could totally see. Yeah.
So I'm in my happy place when I'm creating
I can imagine.
Or creating some face special potion.
Yeah, lovely.
So perfumes, perfumes and fragrance things were probably one of the first things that went. And as soon as I could figure out a swap for it, it was really easy to ditch. So most things I DIY. And then there's just a few things that I still purchase that I'm okay with.
Yeah. Non-essential oil-based purchases, is that what, or do you mean even from within, essential oil-based products?
I still purchase the laundry liquid as an example.
Okay.
I purchase it from where I buy my oils from, but yes, I still I'm what I call myself a lazy DIYer. So if I can kind of find one that I know I can trust that is purchasable, I will buy it and save myself that. But most things I will DIY.
Yeah. I think I probably fall in a similar category, and I think I've DIY'd everything over time. And then I've worked out, from scraping the coconut flesh out of the coconut to make my own coconut yogurt before coconut yogurt was everywhere. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I just don't think I can do this. I'm happy to buy some things and and make other things, whether that's food-based, or
it's still got to fit into our lifestyle, doesn't it? So
it has to not be stressful, and I think that's stress is, for me, that's where essential oils have really, really helped me with my thyroid health, is in the stress management and just having an easy tool for reducing stress and changing my mood, and that's been really helpful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Lowering and detoxing as well. So I have invested in a sauna at home, and I know that's been expensive for a lot of people.
Oh, that's all right. I've got a sauna too, so I get it.
And
I live in Brisbane, not Tasmania, so, like just living here is a sauna in summer.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
But detoxing our bodies, sweating, exercising. I've always been really great at exercising, but using a few extra tools in our toolkit to help our body detox out those toxins as well. So there's only so much we can control. I can't control much when I leave my house. So, I use all those other things like the oils, my sauna, a bit of exercise, fresh air. What I can control, I definitely do.
Yeah. And have you been using essential oils as part of your thyroid support?
To be honest, I haven't, and that might shock a lot of people because I'm a massive advocate for the oils. I started out, and for me, I didn't find they made a huge difference to improving any blood test levels or anything. So it'll be interesting when I go back this time. Mind you, I probably wasn't doing it as well as I could have been back then. So if I reckon I did it now and found some really great blends and protocols to do, I think it would be different because my journey has changed since starting. That was a few years ago.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Well, I think, really you are using your essential oils for your thyroid support by reducing this, in all the ways that you're using them. Yeah. That's the way I see it now. That's what got me into using oils, was specifically for thyroid support. That was why I started using them. But it's changed over time too, and I think a lot of it is around that reducing toxic load and those simple swaps and the perfumes and the mood management. And there's I take some supplements that I think I find supportive of my general. I think thyroid is so whole body, just whole body support.
Totally.
But I have made different roller blends and things and for my thyroid, and actually they've really irritated the skin on my neck around my thyroid. I think it's a really sensitive spot. And so I've just found, really well diluted in my facial oil is a really nice way to use a couple of, specific essential oils. But generally it's the whole lifestyle. That's what I found.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I get asked quite a lot, what oils do you use? But it's exactly what you just said. I don't want to say to someone, go roll some myrrh and frankincense on your thyroid and that's going to fix the world. Because that's actually not going to happen. The oils will help complement different processes but it's a whole protocol is what I found. It wasn't just one single thing that I did to help me onto the path that I'm on now. So I'm really clear with people on that too, because I don't want someone to think there's this quick fix, and I don't think, for me, I didn't want the quick fix of here, just take some tablet. I wanted to understand the root underlying reasons and try and fix those so that therefore I'm fixing more than just one part of my body. So I've actually got bursitis in my shoulder and right hip. And so living anti-inflammatory helps that. It doesn't just help my thyroid, but it helps my bursitis. Yeah. It helps many things. So once we start looking at things bigger than one part of my body, because again, I went in, had an ultrasound, was diagnosed with that on my hip and shoulder, and two different people, because I had to do it over 2 different days. And they both said, you'll just go to your doctor, they'll get you a thing for a cortisone injection. I'm like, I just went, yeah, okay. But I had no intention. There was no way I was coming back to just quickly fix it with some injection, because I don't believe that anymore. I'm like, hang on a minute, there's got to be something more I can do here. How can I treat this,
what's caused that in the first place? Yeah.
So, that was actually what took me down the anti-inflammatory path. And then when I was like, oh, okay, hang on. Well, I don't know why my brain is a bit slow sometimes, but I'm like, oh, hang on, thyroid's an anti-inflammatory thing. This all makes sense.
It all just clicks into place, doesn't it, eventually? Like, I think I'm learning things still all the time, and I'm like, okay, more dots are connected, and, you know, we're so much, the thyroid just affects everything. So I think it makes sense then that all those dots can be connected, and you can't just treat a little gland in your neck. It's the whole whole system, body, emotions, everything. So you said before about treating the root cause. Have you been able to sort of identify some of the things that you think sit behind having an autoimmune thyroid condition for you?
I reckon for me, and again, how do we know
I know, it's just best guess,
But I think for me it definitely was fragrances. I really feel that living in a world, my mum was a hairdresser, I was a beauty therapist. Yes, I went and lived and worked in the military for quite a while. Toxic food, as in nothing additive free. You know, you're fed what you're fed and you eat it. Just the lifestyle, I think. I don't, you know, I was in a bit of a toxic relationship prior to the husband I'm in now. Stress, I think stress plays a massive factor in it, for me especially. But I think it was just a lifestyle, just everything. I don't know that there's one thing, which is why now when I look back and go, okay, I need to treat all of the things, because it's not just one thing.
It's never just one thing.
No.
Yeah. That's what I think too. Like it's never just one thing. There's never one thing that's going to fix it all. There's no quick fixes. It's just it is a lifestyle. So, you know, I think the fact that you've had that going for at least, you know, the last 6 or 7 years anyway, massive help.
Massive help. Yeah, definitely. And even when I went to my new integrative GP, so he's very alternative but in a great way. Like it's got, you know, how they have doctors have all the symbols after their names. Like he's got like this list of symbols after his name. But very alternative GP. And but straight away, like my first appointment was 1 hour long with a GP, you know, rather than you luckily need to get 10 minutes in with a GP. So my first appointment was 1 hour long. Even looked at what fillings I had in my mouth to determine if there was anything going on there. He does specialise in thyroid, which is. So
how did you find him, Tracey?
I guess again on the last 7-year journey, I've heard of these things. People have, you know, you hear little things, and I just kept going along to my GP because. I trusted her. She looks at my women's health and does my pap smears and does all those things. And I'm like, I'll just keep going. And I rarely go to a GP. So I reckon, in fact, I don't even know the last time I went to a GP from being sick. I've gone for a smear or something along those lines, but not for being ill. And so I never really thought to change who I saw. Until the very last time I went in, and I was highly anxious about something, and I could only get into it's a big practice, so I could only get into who I could see on that particular day. He actually said to me, and I quote, "I can't help you. You will need to come back." And here I am crying. I was highly anxious, highly stressed about something, and he basically wouldn't help. He wouldn't help me.
Wow.
I wanted a doctor's certificate for a certain reason. It's a whole nother topic, so I won't go into it.
Yeah, that's okay.
And he basically said I needed to come back. And here I am, like full on, highly stressed, highly anxious, crying in the office. Help me. And I got out to the car, and I remember I was actually really angry. And I thought, that's it. I'm done in this system. I need to find someone who will work with me and not work against me any longer.
Well, you don't want to be stressed going into the doctor because you think they're going to, you know, have their barriers up about the way you're wanting to approach your own health. Yeah.
And, you know, I wasn't asking for anything crazy. Anyway. So, I jumped on my phone in the car, And I literally just Googled integrative. I think I Googled holistic GP.
Yeah.
And this practice came up in Hobart, and I rang them from the car park and said, when can I get the next? Oh, I looked through their doctors, list of doctors, and then this guy popped up, thyroid specialist, it's a gut health specialist, et cetera, general practitioner. And, I just jumped on the phone and said, when can I get an appointment with this doctor? I had to wait a few weeks. The first appointment was an hour, like I said, and each subsequent appointment is half an hour minimum long. So, and the first appointment, I remember walking out and I jumped on Instagram stories straight away, and I was so excited that I had found my person. Like I was, I wanted to tell the world, you guys need to get out of the system you're in.
Yeah, find your person.
Find your person. Like you might be really happy with who you've got, right? That's fine. But find your person, because I was sick of going into doctors and asking or being too scared to ask. Like that shouldn't be the case. Doctors should be there to help us, not tell us to go away and come back, and they can't, it was appalling, this doctor's behaviour. So, from there I had to find my person. I had to find a doctor that was going to help me.
Well, that's so good. And I think most of us end up with an integrative, holistic GP. Yeah. I think it's really critical. Like I think we've got to have them. That's what I think it's really probably the most important person in your support team.
Yeah, yeah. And, like I said, and when I mentioned essential oils, he was like, didn't even bat an eye. It was like, oh, my God.
Woohoo, you found your person. So what did he say? Like, so what was his, Nate, you've been seeing him for the last couple of months. What's changed then in your approach to your thyroid health in the last couple of months?
Well, luckily I already lived that very low tox life. So as he's asking me questions, he's like, oh, okay, tick, tick, tick. So I was already ticking a few boxes.
Yep.
And I didn't have to change a lot in that lifestyle realm, which was great. He definitely suggested being gluten-free. So I started looking and going down that path, which wasn't super hard. My daughter is in a relationship with a young man, and he's gluten-free and dairy-free, so he's often stays here. So I was a bit used to cooking gluten-free and dairy-free, so that's fine. And I actually haven't found it hard at all. And that was probably the biggest thing. And then that was the first appointment. I think he didn't want to overwhelm me too much. He wanted to put me on the herbal supplements, and he also checked the supplements that I was already taking, and he gave them all the tick of approval as well. And they're a multivitamin supplement that I get through the oil company that I am associated with. So he gave them all the tick of approval. He said, keep taking those. Here's some ashwagandha root and some extra selenium and some other things for my adrenal support. Mm-hmm. And he started talking to me about adrenal support on the first appointment. And then on the next appointment I've only ever had the 2 appointments with him, was more about my adrenals, and he wanted to make sure that they were getting as much support as my thyroid as anything. So definitely lowering my stress levels. So I've made it a point to turn off my phone.
I was going to say, how are you doing that?
I got a little bit down a rabbit hole with things happening in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
And that was creating a lot of stress for me and a lot of anxiety for me around that. So I've tried to I want to remain educated and informed, but I don't want to go down the rabbit hole as far as I was heading.
Yep. I think I've probably been down some, well, I don't know if they're the same holes, but I've certainly been down some, and I had to really back right off earlier in the year. I'm like, actually, Annabel, you're getting really angry. You just got it. This isn't serving you. Yeah. And I've just had a couple of weeks off Facebook. Personally, like I've kept my business stuff going, but just stopped looking at my feed, and it's really helped.
Yeah.
Because I'm not seeing all the conflicting views and the, it's been, So
it was the feelings of being attacked for my beliefs on things. And I had to step away from that and just pull myself out of that. I'm not opposed to anything. I just want my choice to be recognised as still a choice. And, given that I won't even eat M&Ms, so there's not a lot of chance I'm going to do something else. I was sick of being called names and anyway. a whole lot of things that
and that's it's stressful. And I think, I mean, you're very open and, you've got a large social media presence, and so you are vulnerable, and that's part of it, isn't it? It's being open but I think people don't always appreciate that it costs. Like it
does. Yeah, we're still people. I'm still a mum. Things and this was on my personal side of my social media as well. So I really needed to step back and take a bit of that stress away, and just some other lifestyle things. I'm still raising children. They're still all at home. They're not children anymore. They're 21 and 18, and
right,
and they're still at home, and they have their things, and then it's just
life. Yeah,
life in general. But there is a lot going on in the world, and that has caused a lot of anxiety for a lot of people, and I feel so much sadness about that, because I feel like there's a lot of things that could have been done a lot differently that didn't have to cause as much as anxiety for people. And, there's a lot of things, suicide and different things that have been in the family and different things that have happened. So not necessarily due to those things, but, it all plays a factor. It rears its head, and, there's things from the past that rear their heads when I'm asked to wear a mask, as an example, and I can't. And, it's really hard. So the anxiety is real.
Yeah. And it often goes with having a thyroid issue anyway. Like anxiety is a common symptom.
Yeah, which is strange, because I have never been an anxious person. I'm the middle child. I'm a Pisces. I'm like, should we write? Don't worry about it. Like we've had terrible money troubles over our years of marriage, and I've been married 22 years, and back in the day when we, you just spend your money, and and not terrible money troubles. That's probably extreme, but we've
you're young, and I get it. Yeah,
22-year marriage, And I'm like, oh, don't worry about it. Should we write? Like, we'll figure it out. Like, and I've never been stressed, ever, not to the point that I am at the moment. And so for me, it was really new, and I didn't know how much it would affect my body by being stressed. My mum's has had cancer, and that I don't even think has stressed me as much as what is happening at the moment. So it's really new for me to feel this way.
Yep.
But yes, the oils, the lifestyle support of who I know supports and supports and loves me. So that's just where I'm sitting at the moment, and working.
Yeah, that's great, because I think aside from the chemicals being more important than I'd realised, stress has probably been massive, And I've learned that it doesn't even really matter if I think it's stressful. If my body responds in a stressful way, or has a stressful response, then it's stressful whether intellectually I think it's stressful or not. And so I can look objectively and think, even in the current times, like, we haven't lost jobs, work, income. There's a whole lot of objective things that I've got no reason to be stressed about. But yet my body still experiences stress, so I have to accept. Well, then I'm more sensitive to stress than I thought I was. I'm more prone to those sort of anxious feelings than I realised I was, and that's just part of the journey. I think is accepting that and going, all right, well, I know now. So once I know better, I can do better. I can be kind with myself. I can build that support team.
Yeah, it's so important. It is so important. Anyone listening, please, just get in tune with that in yourself, because it is so vitally important. I can't stress it enough. But it was so new that I didn't know how to deal with it. And I think that's what took its toll, especially, and like you said, that perceived stress and real stress. Like I could, a fire might break out in the bush, and that's real stress, right? We've got to run, we've got to deal with this. What do we do here? Or someone breaks a leg, that's real stress. That's not anything. But perceived stress is something that, I'm learning a lot more about, and it's exactly what you just said there was and I might worry about something that might happen in the future, but it might not happen, but it might happen. And therefore my brain just goes around and around in circles of what might or might not. And I can't let it go. And my husband's like, will you just stop? And I'm like, I don't know
I
how.
actually can't. Yeah.
And he just, I'm sure he's asleep before his head even hits the pillow.
Yeah.
And I'm like an hour later going, my brain's still going. So I'm using oils, I'm doing all those things, and they're actually really working. But I'm turning my phone off. It's been, turn your phone off, everyone.
Yeah, it's absolutely. It's amazing that boundary is far more important than we realise. Hey, yeah,
big time.
So what oils are you using at night, like at the moment? Because I know it changes. Have you got any favourites at night?
I'm really I love frankincense on my third eye, like middle of my forehead, and Roman chamomile. And I'm actually using copaiba and clary sage on the soles of my feet. And over my adrenals, I am using, there's about 5 or 6, but a little bottle of concoction that I've made up of, I can't even remember. I know copaiba's in there. There's one called Aroma Touch, but it depends on what brand oil you're using. Anyway, there's a few in that bottle as well over my. So just those combinations of different things, trying to head to bed at a reasonable time each night. And I diffuse some oils in my bathroom, and some stress sort of reducing oils in my bathroom as well, which is really lovely. So even if I do that throughout the day, they just go in my bathroom all day. So, you're in and out of your bathroom washing hands or going to the toilet all day. Yeah,
that's a nice idea, isn't it? Yeah.
And so it's really lovely, just a nice space that, creates that nice vibe at night as well, brushing your teeth and you're starting to calm and things. So it's beautiful. Yeah,
it's building. It was working out what that routine is. And I think when you do have a busy or get into that overthinking, to have some things that wind back at night. Yeah. I've got a little roller, like a concoction that I've made. I can't remember what's in it now either, but it's definitely got frankincense. Some of those similar ones, Roman chamomile, magnolia, I find really lovely at night. And I just pretty much roll it all over me. I roll it up my forearms, all over my forehead, the back of my neck. I kind of just roll it anywhere.
And my serum that I use at nighttime on my skin has frankincense, myrrh, rose, helichrysum, and something else in it. And so all of those are calming oil. Lavender is the other one. So they're all calming oils as well, So I'm using that at nighttime, and that's just my face serum. But it all works in combination. And again, it's just, 1, lowering my toxic load, but 2, helping my emotional support. I can't, like, the oils, I know people, if someone had said to me, the emotional part of the oils has actually taken me, and I'm a really emotional person, but that has taken me a little bit to get my head around, because I've just always put them in a bit of a hippie woo-woo pile. And I've used them for all the other parts. But it wasn't until actually Mum got cancer that I used frankincense really for the first time on an emotional level. And that first appointment going in and knowing, we knew that it wasn't going to be great, because they actually said, bring a bag, you'll probably go straight from this appointment to the hospital. So we knew things weren't going to be great. And I remember sitting in the car, and for some reason I had frankincense in my handbag, and I put some on my thumb and press it to the roof of my mouth. And it was the first time I'd ever done that. And this was 3 years ago. And it was almost like instant calm. Like, I wasn't calm because I knew I was still going to be walking into a stressful, emotionally heightened situation, but it was like I could understand what the doctor was telling me in that appointment, and I wasn't just crying. Like, I was aware. I don't know, it's hard, it's really hard to explain what it did for me then.
But it just calmed you.
And anyone listening that has never used oils are going to think this chick's crazy, but they work.
That's right. There's plenty of people that listen to this that do use oils, so they won't think you're crazy. And if you're listening and don't, well, that you can always get crazy with us too. So.
You can get cray with us. We're all over here cray together. So anyway, I loved them, and I've been using them now, and I'm really learning heaps more about them on that emotional. I've used them for years, like I said, but now I'm right, okay, I need to get really serious about this.
It's a bit like thyroid health. Like everything can just go to the next level. Like you can just keep getting more and more and more and, understanding. And it's wonderful. So Tracey, we'll kind of wrap up. So as we're wrapping up, like if you were to either go back to the beginning and, give yourself some advice or just advice for people that might be new to the whole thyroid journey, what would you say? What would you say are the couple of most important things?
If I could give my younger self advice, I would tell, and this is what I tell my 21-year-old and 18-year-old.
Yep.
Get in tune with your body. If you don't know your body, as a woman especially, but as a man also, really understand it, track things, monitor things. I've never tracked my cycles until recently. Just kind of gone with the flow, like again, just that personality, but really get in tune with it and understand it, because going along to a doctor and really knowing deeply, trusting your instinct, I think as mums, we have really great instincts around our kids, but we lose a few instincts around ourselves. And I think as society, we're told to not have instincts. We're told to do this and don't question it. And when we have instincts, I've always said to my children, if those hairs on the back of your neck raise up in any way, if you're in a situation, as young girls especially, but if you're in a situation and you're like, something doesn't feel right, you leave and you don't question it. You go and you leave. And I've started to take my own advice on that. If I think something's not quite right here, I question it. I want to find out more. I want to know more. So if I could tell my younger self anything, it would be to question more things. It would be to not just blindly follow along, mainstream everything, and to just really question, get in tune with myself a whole lot more than I was, and understand things like, we're taught at school to question things and then we stop questioning things. But really keep digging until you find answers, because just accepting things and sometimes isn't the right thing to do. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is accepting things. We accepted mum's chemo as much as, it really is hard, but we accepted treatments. We're not against mainstream medicines or anything that can help us, of course not, but questioning things and seeking underlying root causes, because there is a root cause for most conditions. Some things we will never find out what they are, but like we will never know what caused mum's leukemia. Could it have been the millions of years as a hairdresser? Who knows, right? I will never know what caused my thyroid to go so haywire, but I know now what causes it to go haywire.
Yeah.
So what I can do now is what I could have done back then, potentially. We don't know, right?
But you don't know. You don't know how you would have been, I know it took me a long time to get my head around dietary changes. So I think if I really knew that when I was a teenager, would I really have made those changes? I don't know.
Oh, probably not. But I could have told myself that and at least known, and I think that's the thing, like what we try and teach people in our course to live additive free, it's like, go and eat it. If you want to eat it, fine, but at least eat it knowing what you're eating.
Yeah.
So if I want to go and eat M&Ms, go for it, but at least I know what can cause, what issues can come from that, right? So if I'd have known that at 16 and then just blindly went, I'm going to ignore that and I'm just going to go and do this anyway, at least I would have known.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So,
knowledge is power. You can't stick your head in the sand. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can't unlearn what you know. And we
I know. Sometimes, yeah. I know.
But once you know it, you can't unlearn it. Yeah. So be aware of that. But knowing it is power, and you can then make the choices.
So, Tracey, if people are interested in finding out a bit more about the whole additive free lifestyle and what you offer, where should they go?
Yeah, we're Additive Free Lifestyle on every platform. Well, we're only on Instagram and Facebook, but and we have a website which is the same, Additive Free Lifestyle. So if you just Googled or put onto your search platform Additive Free Lifestyle, you'll find us. We're the first ones there.
Yeah, excellent. And I'll put all the links in show notes and things anyway. So, but look, I really appreciate your time, Tracey, because I know, I know that you're busy, but I'm a firm believer that everyone that shares their story on the podcast, that there'll be people listening where your story will really speak to them in a way that somebody else's won't, because we're all different and we all have those slightly different experiences. And and so I know that for many of those listening will find this really, really helpful. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Let's Talk Thyroid. I would love it if you would subscribe to the podcast and share it with others that you know with thyroid problems. Let's get the message out there. If you'd like to connect with me further, the best place to do that is via my website, annabelbateman.com. From there, you'll be able to join my Facebook group, book a strategy session with me, download my freebie, and access any show notes for this episode. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
The information presented and discussed in this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease and should not be used as a substitute for proper advice from a qualified professional.